Hi, and welcome back to Beans and Bezels. Today I'm going to be introducing you to the Guinand Flight Engineer. This is the Guinand watch that I had originally planned to buy, and the HS100 was more of an impulsive purchase. This watch is interesting for two reasons. First, this watch has all the Guinand DNA that you'd expect from their more traditional pieces, but is still a departure from their heritage style chronographs and pilot watches. Second, this watch is designed to be resistant to magnetic fields up to 1000 Gauss, similar to the original Rolex Milgauss. They achieved this by designing an intricate shield system for their movement, making use of pure iron and a nickel alloy. There's much debate as to whether having a magnetism resistant watch is of much use to the typical watch enthusiast, and I won't go into that debate. I'll just say that it's nice knowing that your watch is protected from such a situation if you ever encounter one. This watch was released late last year but slipped under the radar as most Guinand watch releases usually do. The case design is conservative and similar to their chronograph lineup. I do like the overall shape of their cases, and it wears comfortably on the wrist with perfectly sized lugs that don't extend out of the case too much. The case has a beautiful vertical brushed finishing, which according to Guinand is hand satinized. I bought this watch for it to be an everyday watch, and I personally prefer brushed cases and brushed bracelets for watches that I use frequently. Here you can see some of the vertical brushing on the case. The case and bracelet joint is excellent with no gaps or noticeable wiggle. The brushing on the bracelet matches the case perfectly, even though this bracelet is used on more than one of their watches. The case has short crown guards similar in style to the Rolex Submariner, and the crown is finished to match the case with a surface that is easy to grip. The screw-down crown has double O-rings and is rated for 200 meters of water resistance. The crown is well machined and has the brand's logo on top. The crown screws down all the way with no visible gaps between the crown and the case. Let's flip it over and take a look at the case back. The magnetism-resistant inner shielding makes an exhibition-style case back impossible. Instead, you have a solid screw-down case back with the brand's logo etched in the center and a magnet engraved around it. The double O-ring screw-down crown and screw-down case back allow the watch to be rated for 200 meters of water resistance. Moving on to one of my favorite parts of this watch, the bezel. The bezel looks really impressive in person. It is a bidirectional friction-based bezel marked for 60 minutes in numbered increments of 10. As far as I can tell, the entire bezel is made out of a lightweight metal with white binding on the sides and white markers. The metal is brushed radially and looks really beautiful. The bezel has an orange lume pip at the 12 o'clock, but the lume on this isn't great and fades much faster than the rest of the dial. The orange pip is one of only two elements of color on this watch and help to maintain the overall simple aesthetic. I bought this watch because of how simple and easy to read the dial is. The only color accent on the dial is the orange tip on the seconds hand, which matches the loomed orange pip on the bezel perfectly. The rest of the dial is a simple black and white contrast with white hands and hour markers on an almost matte finished black dial. The simplicity and legibility of the dial is clearly derived from Guinand's long history of designing practical and efficient pilot watches. It would be nice to see a modern interpretation of this dial with bolder colors such as blue for those that want a bit of flair in their watches. The only element of asymmetry on this dial is the date window. I'm not usually a fan of date windows to begin with, and awkwardly positioned date windows usually throw me off completely. The date window on this watch is positioned between the 4 and 5 o'clock hour markers, but is very small and has a black date wheel background which makes it almost unnoticeable. The small size of the date window is likely because of the need to minimize points of exposure on the magnetism-resistant movement shield. After wearing this watch for a couple of days, I don't notice the date window at all until I actually need to read it, which to me is a date window properly executed. I can imagine a lot of people with dial OCD will find this to be a deal breaker, but all I'll say is that the position of it is the only real awkward aspect of it, because the rest of the design and the colors help it blend in perfectly. Let's talk lume. I mentioned earlier that the lume on the orange pip wasn't great, but let me say this, the lume on the dial is just amazing. This is probably the best lumed watch I have in my collection right now. Guinand are using grade X1 Super Luminova, which is the highest grade available, I believe. The second hand is also loomed and very visible, which adds to the already excellent nighttime viewing experience. This watch has a Sellita SW220, which isn't a spectacular movement but is popular among Sinn and RS watches in this price range. I received a certificate of testing from Guinand which states a tolerance of plus 5 seconds per day. I logged this watch for a 5-day period and noticed an average of plus 4.8 seconds per day, so that's definitely within tolerance. I've also noticed that resting this watch with the 9 down at night helps lower the deviation, and I've logged about plus 2.8 seconds per day over the last 3 days. This watch has a diameter of 40.6 millimeters and a lug-to-lug width of 48.5 millimeters. On my 6.25-inch wrist, this fits great. The height is 14.8 millimeters, which is on the taller end of the spectrum for wrists such as mine, but I don't find it too large at all. In terms of strap options, as I mentioned in my last video, Guinand has an excellent range of leather and rubber straps that are quite reasonably priced. I purchased 2 leather straps for this watch, but have been mostly using the metal bracelet. The bracelet looks terrific and the beveled edges on each link make it look very sleek. Let me give you a closer look at the links. The clasp has 4 micro adjustment slots spanning 3 millimeters. The clasp is robust but looks a bit too simple for what is an extremely well designed and engineered bracelet. I would have liked to see an on-the-go quick adjustment, given the rest of this watch is kind of designed to be an ultimate tool watch. It is very comfortable though, and I won't be switching back to the leather strap anytime soon. Wrapping up, I think this watch is an amazing option in the tool watch category. It fits right between the two worlds of efficient and legible pilot watches and robust and aggressive divers. If this watch was a bit sleeker, I would say that this is a great alternative to the Rolex Explorer 1 and other similarly styled watches. There are a lot of watches in this price range, but I definitely recommend that you consider this watch in your search. If you want a simple, legible watch that is designed and engineered to resist the effects of its environment, this is the right watch for you. It can easily fly under the radar and go unnoticed. Nothing about the design comes across as attention-seeking, but rather just existing to perform a task, like a true instrument. I've had a great experience with Guinand's customer service so far, and they've been extremely responsive through the entire process of ordering and delivering this watch. And to echo my disclaimer in the written review, I paid the full retail price to buy this watch, and this review was in no way incentivized by anyone. Once again, thanks for watching this video, and be sure to read the entire review in the description below.